Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious?
Squirrel! I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Welcome, everybody, to the One-Eyed Film Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Mossberg. Today I have Zach Oslin with me.
Friendly gesture.
That's great. If you guys didn't know, we're doing Free Guy today, and there's just so many of those little jokes packed in there that it's so funny. That's one of my favorites from Dude at the end of the movie. Character of Dude embraces the awkwardness, but also the essence of Guy. It's just great. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Free Guy was one of my favorite movies from last year, and we're here to talk about it today. It actually, believe it or not, is probably one of the best cases for a creator and living with a purpose, as we'll see in a little bit. So I'm excited to get to talk about it. Zach, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I feel like behind No Way Home, it's probably my favorite movie of 2021. And it's just, the start of this team up between actor Ryan Reynolds and the director Sean Levy. And, since this movie, they went on to do the Netflix original movie, The Adam Project, together. And now they're also going on to do Deadpool 3. So it's cool to see them, start this team up here with just this great movie. And I remember going into this movie in August with my family, just seeing it as, this PG-13 Ryan Reynolds movie. So it was like, whoa, I don't really know what to expect from this. My bar was set pretty low. I just expected it to be fun. But then, going into it, and coming out of it, I just got, so much out of it. It was just a great time.
Mm-hmm. I actually forgot that No Way Home came out last year, so I take that back. It was not my number one movie. It was my number two movie. I remember being very curious about it because I was watching a couple YouTubers at the time who said that they were in a movie with Ryan Reynolds, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And so I put it on the back burner until it came out, and I was like, all right, I'll go see it. And I was just blown away. I loved it as a gamer and also as a guy who likes watching videos on video game development, behind the scenes stuff. This movie nailed it. It was very accurate both to the gaming on the consumer side, but also the gaming on the creation side, because obviously Keys, one of the main characters, makes the game and is a game designer for Tsunami, the video game company. And I think it's all really well put together. I know Sean Levy talked to people like Jacksepticeye about terminology and things that he should add into the movie, and he heard them, whatever Jack had to say about it, and he put it into the movie. And I think that's a sign of a good director who wants to make sure he's being accurate while also knowing what stuff he can tweak to the point where it's cinematic enough, because not everything can be accurate and cinematic at the same time.
Yeah, and just talking about the director Sean Levy a little bit more. It had been a while since I saw a Sean Levy movie before Free Guy. My family had the first two Night at the Museum movies on DVD growing up, so we watched those a lot.
I would say that Sean Levy is one of those few directors who knows what makes a good movie, or at least an entertaining movie, because with his name on things like Stranger Things, Adam Project, Night at the Museum, a lot of those things are solid movies. Even if they're not the best movies, they're very entertaining, and I really appreciate him knowing how to direct a certain style and keep it consistent.
I feel like there's also always this unexpected depth in everything he does. Most of the time you go into his movies just expecting to have a fun time, but then you're just hit with this lesson, and it just impacts you at an emotional level.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that towards the end of this movie. But as you said earlier, this was probably a perfect PG-13 Ryan Reynolds movie. And usually what we mean by that is that Reynolds tends to be pretty edgy with his quips and one-liners. They're all really funny, but some of them are really close to the edge, but really hilarious. And I think that while keeping this under PG-13 rating, I think it's a really, really fun movie to watch.
I think especially when he's at the coffee shop, you hear some pretty interesting quips from him.
Yeah, I really want to know which lines in all of his movies are ad-libbed or not, because he has a mind where he just can think of a comeback really quickly, and it's really fun to watch him. And I think that's one reason why people really like him as an actor, not only because of all of the memes of the boys wanting Ryan Reynolds, but also he really wants to have a good time with his job. Not only does he really want to make it entertaining for those on set, but also he really keeps it neutral in what he believes. He does not make his movies super political. He doesn't really express his beliefs that much. He is just an actor who is there to do his job and be friendly, and I think that is why he is so beloved, is because he doesn't let anything else affect his actions either on set or off set.
Yeah, just kind of as you were saying, it's cool to see Ryan Reynolds just kind of be one of these few genuinely nice people in Hollywood, and it was cool to see him draw in some of his like big actor friends to make cameos. You know, like we got Dwayne Johnson, Hugh Jackman, John Krasinski making cameos as gamers in the film, and then we got Chris Evans later. So that was just really cool to see.
Yeah, he has that mentality of everybody's friend. And I know for the Chris Evans cameo, he just texted Chris and said, "Hey, are you in the area? Can we throw you into a movie?" And Chris was like, yeah. And they go to a coffee shop. They record that one scene. It probably took 15 minutes, but it was a really great addition. And I don't think anyone else could have done it except Ryan.
I think Chris Evans' like first response was like, "You've got 20 minutes."
Yeah, and Reynolds was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So that's great. So pretty quickly we get introduced to Free City. It's pretty obvious that this is a place very similar to GTA where rules are, as Guy says, they're not really rules. They're more like mild suggestions. And it's interesting how the game developers, both in this fictional world for Free City and in the real world for GTA, have created a world where if you remove rules or remove the responsibility of laws, that everything turns into chaos. Imagine everything that happens in this movie, but instead it's happening in a GTA Let's Play. It would be very interesting to be playing GTA as a good guy instead of someone who's going to rob banks and beat up people and stealing their cars and all that. Part of that is just our human nature who tends towards evil. You can go really meta about that, but I wonder why Free City and GTA are so known for doing the wrong thing and breaking the law for fun as the whole point of the game.
Yeah, it's just, it's a straight up fact that our very humanity is just plagued by sin, and we can't argue that part. And just like ever since the fall of man, we've had this inclination for evil, and it's like, it's easy for us to sin, and that's basically what Antoine, the developer of this game, is banking on. So he's just relying on our love of evil to like make money from this game.
It's interesting for this game that removes the responsibility of laws and how it ends up in mayhem and chaos when a lot of people who think that laws are too constraining on an individual. This kind of shows what would happen in the real world. I mean, when there's no right or wrong, when there's no absolute truth in the world, things will hit the ceiling fan.
Antoine, relies on the past to plan his future in a lot of ways. He's got the line at one point where he says, IPs and sequels, these are the things that people want. He sees these violent video games and just the violence in our world in general that are just like filled with death and glorified evil, and he sees that's actually what sells with people. So he just keeps making games like that, and there's no room for anything else. So then when Millie and Keys have like this game that's just a paradise, just of peace and people living together in harmony, he just doesn't understand why anyone would enjoy that at all. He even steals that game to create a game of violence. And that's basically because, doing good is like this higher level of thinking. We can fall into sin, but goodness is a climb.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. I mean, there's a lot more money in the violent and the sin in this world rather than the good, and that's why I wonder how a game like Life Itself would actually perform in the real world.
Yeah.
And how quickly someone would figure out how to ruin it and make it, bad, just because that's our nature. This movie does a great job showing human depravity and how we are destined to sin.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like, I remember walking out of this movie for the first time, I was just thinking, like, no one would want to play a game where you just observe people at peace. We want to blow things up. But that's kind of just like what this movie is critiquing in a way. It's just we have to be more than what we're wired to be in a lot of ways. We're just past sinful beings. We can do more than that, and we can live better lives if we're being intentional with doing good instead of falling back into evil, and that's when we can develop and grow into who we are.
Yeah, but I would also say this movie kind of feeds that need to blow stuff up, or at least see stuff blown up, because there's a lot of fun, goofy gags in here.
Yeah.
But it's also, that's why I say watching a movie about someone's normal everyday life would be really boring, and that's why we never see a movie like that. Something has to go wrong in order for it to be interesting. Even if it is a story of somebody's life, they're making a movie of it because something happened. Or if it's a based on a true story movie, then something in this person's life suddenly went wrong or something intense happened. So we watch the movies because it's extraordinary for us. So when we get introduced to our main character, Guy, he is on a loop going about his day. It's pretty obvious through the editing that he just does the same thing every day and he has no problem with it. I wouldn't say that this is actually how NPCs are, because NPCs don't have minds or have a story. And as Guy goes about his loop, he does something that he usually doesn't do, and he fights back the bank robbers and steals their glasses, something that is completely out of character for him. But then he goes outside, puts the glasses on, and he sees his world for what it truly is. And he can see all of the pieces of the game, all of the different levels, all of that jazz. And it's just interesting because I would say the same thing happens with us when we discover the freedom in Christ, or at least are introduced to the reality that there is more than just life. In this moment, at least as this relates to the Christian walk, Guy has realized that there is something more, and he's willing to be interested by it enough that he'll eventually be led to the truth, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Couple small things before we move on to the deeper topics at hand. I love when Antoine calls out the art nerds, and they are very stereotypical art nerds. Like, coming out of the animation department, I just think it's really funny how they chose to portray the art nerds.
Yeah, just on a deeper level, throughout this whole movie, Guy is breaking free from the role that he's been given as an NPC and to live for himself instead. And there's just like a valuable application for our lives today in that. And it's so easy to get comfortable in the role that life has given us. At the beginning of the movie, we hear guys say that's why they call them comfort zones. They're so dang comfortable. And, I can actually, empathize with this a lot. Throughout most of high school, I just let life happen. I didn't really have a sense of purpose or drive, so I just went through the motions. I wanted more from life, but this is just what was most comfortable and easiest. Like, even coming to Northwestern originally was just life leading me there. It wasn't until I felt called to youth ministry that I really started to feel like I was making life happen instead of letting life happen. And, God didn't create us to be like these passive beings. In 1 Corinthians 9:24-27, we read, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the game goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it for a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave. But after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize." So yeah, I just feel like this is one of the greatest lessons from the movie, just giving purpose to your life, not just living for the sake of living, but living for a purpose and with drive.
I love that. That's great. I would say a lot of people will live their life as the background character to everyone else's story, and I can say that from experience because even a year ago I felt the same way. I felt as though I was just gliding along life and letting it happen to me, and then when I decided that I was going to do something with my life and make decisions that were risky, led me to a really great place where I am today. It helped me grow a lot. And I would just encourage everyone who feels like they're a background character to other people's story, try and be the main character of your own story. I don't want that to be prideful, saying that you are the center of your own universe, because that should be Christ and everything you do should glorify him, but live life with a purpose.
Yeah, and I feel like we see this lesson continue with Buddy's story too. For almost the whole movie, he's just fine with living the life that life has given him. Like, when we see Guy dreaming about this girl, Buddy's just fine where he's at. And then every time a sunglasses person walks in the bank, he drops his belt. And this is just symbolizes that he's content with just going through the motions. But then later, at the end of the movie, we see Buddy drop his belt in the new peaceful paradise that they've been given. But then this time, it isn't an act of routine or just going through the motions. It's an act of freedom, because now he gets to choose what he's going to make of his life.
Yeah, his act of dropping his belt was really symbolic, the way it changed between his routine throughout the movie compared to the end of the movie when he has made a decision to live life to the fullest.
It's almost like how just seeing this action of taking his belt off symbolize kind of like routine and restraint at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end of the movie it symbolizes freedom, is kind of like what we see happened with Long. The cross was sign of death and destruction, but then after Jesus, we now see the cross as a sign of life.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree that things can change meaning depending on how they're viewed, just like Christ did with the cross, and how I believe movies do this a lot, is give us an item that changes in meaning by the end of the movie. But I want to talk about one of the best arguments and also just visualizations of a purposeful creator that I've seen in a movie in a while. Guy is now in Life Itself, the new game that Keys and Millie created, and he's finally living life to his fullest, like we've already talked about. And Guy and Millie are talking, and Guy says to her,
"I love you, Millie." Maybe that is my programming talking, but guess what? Someone wrote that program. I'm just a love letter to you. Somewhere out there is the author.
And when I heard that, I felt all the emotions. Like, this is Guy's shifting reality, where Millie told Guy the truth in the middle of the movie that he's an NPC, that this is all a video game, telling him the truth about the world. And by the end, Guy is enlightened to the point where he gives her the truth about her world. He understands that while everything that he sees is created, by keys in this case, that it was made with a purpose. And especially himself, he finds his own purpose, and that is to let Millie know of a greater story, a greater reason for his existence. And I think, as silly and ridiculous and sometimes crude this movie can be, the final point they hit home is so close to the message of the Bible. It would not have surprised me if they pulled out a Bible verse at the end to kind of wrap it all up. That would have made sense, but also been so, I want to say, uncalled for in the nicest way possible, just because it's not pointing to that. But this is why we watch movies, is so that we can see the themes in the movies that sometimes the writers and directors don't mean to put in, or do mean to put in, as a way to point us to the creator. And this is one of those movies that you could take to your unbelieving friend, watch it, and then talk about it and say, okay, why did Guy feel so passionately about him being created, and that there is an author out there somewhere who is writing your story, or at least who created you to play out in a story that is his for the purpose of others. And as I said in episode 0, which you should have listened to by now, movies really reflect reality, and sometimes in a very spiritual way. And this one just hits so close to home in how we should feel when it comes to our creator and how we live. Because the reason Guy started to live with purpose is because there was an inkling in the back of his head that there was something more. And somewhere in between the climax of the movie and this end scene, he realizes that Millie is real, Guy is a programming, but he kind of understands, a programmer and the programming. And so he puts 2 and 2 together and says, if I love Millie, someone else programmed me to love Millie, which means this guy loves Millie. And it just reflects our relationship with God so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really impactful to put ourselves in the shoes of Guy as well in this instance. When he says the love letter quote to Millie, it's in a romantic sense, but we can also just view this in the wider sense as well. Like, we can be love letters from God to families, friends, and just anyone we come in contact with, because that's what we're called to be as Christians.
Exactly. And anything that God created has the ability to speak to anyone on a level that draws them back to him. Mm-hmm. I would say natural creation, his written word, somebody's friendship, anything, whether it seems like random chance or just an act of God, I think can always draw somebody back to Christ, make them feel the love that we can hardly explain because it's unlike any other.
Yeah, and just speaking about creation, it's kind of cool because we almost see the creation story in this movie in a way. Like, Millie and Keys create a game that's just this peaceful paradise where people just live in harmony together, and then Antoine comes in and takes this peaceful paradise and makes it a world that idolizes evil, and then this world of paradise can't be restored until the world of evil is destroyed. And it's cool how that's a strong parallel to what we read in the Bible, with just God creating a world for humans to live in at peace, and then Satan deceives Eve, and then the fall of man happened, and then we lived in this world of darkness, and then we won't see the original creation where the new world and the new heavens come into existence until this world of evil is destroyed.
Yeah, that's a great parallel. The entirety of the movie, you can see that progression from paradise to tarnished and back to paradise, and how that reflects our own history.
Just with the whole lesson about the freedom to live and to choose how you want to live your life too. Just the tagline of the movie is don't have a good day, have a great day. And it gains depth as the movie goes on. At the beginning of the movie, it's just a fun farewell from our favorite chipper NPC bank teller. But as the movie progresses, it really conveys the movie's main lesson. We don't have to be satisfied with a good day. It's usually easy to have a good day, but we can seek out more from life. If we're intentional, we can have that great day instead of just a good day.
Yeah, again, living with purpose. And I would say this is along the same lines of The Truman Show and Truman's tagline that he has, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, which Josh referenced in the Top Gun episode. Again, that would be a really fun one to do. But I would say that Free Guy actually is the modern version of The Truman Show, because what The Truman Show kind of focuses on is that anything that is put in front of you, you will believe is true. And Guy really has no other reason to believe anything else is true, and it's kind of an indoctrination type of theme. And this is really a modern version of The Truman Show for a younger audience, and I believe probably a lot better put together than The Truman Show. It's been a while since I watched it, but yeah, I would say that when you find out that there's more to life, it's going to change the way you live. And having a day that happens to be good happens quite a lot, but it takes effort to make it a great day at least personally.
Yeah, I actually have a sticker on my laptop that says, "Don't have a good day, have a great day." And I just got it at first because it's a fun quote from a movie. But I feel like after watching it with a new perspective now, that just having the sticker on my laptop has like gained value for me, and just seeking more from my day and not being satisfied with being good and being intentional with what I do in my day.
That's a great reminder.
Continuing with talking about the Truman Show, I think one of the most blatant references to the movie in Free Guy is just the beach scene. You know, when Guy discovers she's an NPC, it's a very dramatic scene. And in this scene that's very reminiscent to the Truman Show, we see him run out to the beach and yell, "It's all a lie." In both of these movies, the water represents the same thing. It's their limitations and their fears. In Truman Show, he's scared of the water because of his father's death. In Free Guy, the water is a literal boundary that he physically cannot cross. And after Guy realizes who he is and what his whole world actually is, he goes to have this conversation with his best friend, Buddy. And Guy basically asks Buddy what he would do if he wasn't real. And Buddy actually gives him some pretty, great advice. At one point in the conversation, Buddy says, "If I'm not real, at least this moment is." Our limitations shouldn't be something that stops us. You know, when we hit a wall, it should only be a sign for us to keep going. In both the Truman Show and Free Guy, we see them persevere and break past these boundaries that they have kind of had their whole lives, and then they achieve much more than they ever could.
I think the main theme that we can pull away from this movie is living with purpose. Well, I've loved talking about this movie with you, Zach. I think it's a really fun one to watch, really enjoyable movie, and it has a really deep message. It's so much fun to watch a Ryan Reynolds movie that's not too hard to wonder if you really should be watching this. On this whole topic of a Ryan Reynolds movie, we've come to our big announcement that you've all been waiting but on the edge of your seat for. We have a special episode releasing next week on Christmas Day on the movie Spirited, the movie that just came out this year with Will Ferrell and, surprise, surprise, Ryan Reynolds. I watched it. I was pleasantly surprised, especially because of a very strong theme that has been a theme of a theme, that talks about kind of human depravity and unredeemable. And if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But we're going to have a special episode on that coming out on Sunday, Christmas Day. We're also going to have a new type of episode called a roundtable episode, which Josh and Will and I recorded back when we recorded the Prestige episode for the first time. It's just a look into the conversations we have as friends and the topics we cover, like originality in video games. So that roundtable episode and a discussion on Spirited will be coming out on Christmas, so you get 2 extra episodes for the holidays. And if you guys would be so kind as to give us a gift of sharing with your friends and family while you're home for the holidays. We're continuing to grow every single day. I just learned today we have a listener out in Denmark.
Nice.
So whoever you are, thank you for listening. I'm really appreciative of how this podcast is growing. If you want to get connected even more, you can join our Discord, where we have a lot of good discussions. You can follow us on Instagram and follow us wherever you are listening right now. You literally cannot not find our podcast. It's on every platform. There's no reason that you can't listen to it because you can't find it, or your friends can't listen to it because they can't find it. It's literally everywhere. With that said, thank you guys so much for listening. This has been a great discussion with you, Zach. I'm glad we can finally introduce other people other than Will and Josh on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been an honor talking about this movie with you, and just remember, don't have a good day, have a great day.
You guys, we want to let you know that you are loved and have a great holiday season. We love you. Have a great day. Peace.
Merry Christmas, everyone.